All right, welcome to my talk, Make Good Game, Get Good Review, Unga Bunga. I think they titled it something differently on the thing, but it is think like a player. Make better games, get better reviews. How am I qualified to talk about this shit, you ask? Well, over the last 5 years, I produced 5 top 10, hi Jeff, what are you doing in Melbourne? Top 10 best-selling, high-rated indie hits you may have heard of. Dusk, A Medieval, Ultrakill, Gloomwood, and Faith. And in the last few months, I've been very busy. We also did a Medieval VR, and then did a remaster of Rise of the Triad with Night Dive Studios. I make game good. And then a few days ago, we announced a free remaster of one of our games, Dusk, for absolutely no reason, because we love you and we hate money. And people seem to be very excited about that as well. I am also from across the ditch. I am on the NZGD blah blah blah. I'm on the board of the guys over there with some people that are smarter than me. And as part of that, I run the Games Made in New Zealand Steam sale that you may have seen the last couple of years. So we let everybody know that we make Dredge, not you. NZ, Dredge, that's ours. Oh, and as of today, Game Informer just apparently we've got a full spread in Game Informer in the next issue about us doing stuff. Which I did not expect. I gave an interview like a long time ago, and they were like, hey, the next issue, you got like a 5-page thing on New Blood, and I was like, sick. And we tried to go out and find some copies, but apparently they don't make print magazines anymore, so it's going to be hard to get. No, do not send me Discord notifications while I'm giving a talk. Bad developers. Hang on. Slideshow. But anyway, so yeah, why am I qualified to talk about making better games and getting better reviews? Because me do good. Mostly when it comes to first-person shooters in Steam. If you want to make a real-time strategy game and put it on Xbox, probably not your guy. But anyway, a lot of this is common sense, but a lot of you are still not fucking doing it, so here we go. First thing, first-time user experience, or as weird AAA motherfuckers tend to call it, FATUI. Don't ever say FATUI, it's really weird. What that means is you're responsible for your player's time from the second they boot up the game till the second the credits roll and everything in between. So make the most of it. As you can see on the left here, this is when you boot up Dusk, if you've played Dusk, it immediately boots you into a fake DOS prompt. You are immediately teleported back to 1996 when you hit that boop, and the thing goes down the screen, and you can do that as part of your first-time user experience. Draw them in from the get-go. Things you can do during the first-time user experience. Teach the player how to play the game, duh. Establish a desired look and feel. Default settings, this is very important. A lot of you are still having your default settings, especially if it's an Unreal game, set to Epic. And then when people launch the game, it's a frickin' slideshow because their PC cannot run it on Epic because you didn't set the default settings to medium like you should have. What do you want them to see? How do you want them to see it? Draw them into your world. This is your only chance before they run off into the game and break it. It's very important. Tutorialization. It's not a dirty word. Not even sure it is a word. Like I got spell checked on it. I'm like, that's a word. Show the player how to use your tools, but allow them to master them. No hand-holding. You only have to tell players things once, but you do have to tell them. But as long as you tell them, you're off the hook. Because if they complain, oh, you never taught me this, you can be like, yes, I did. It was in the tutorial. You skipped it. Your fault, not my fault. Flip your review. But you do have to tell them. But not everything. Like in Dusk, so we make first-person shooters mostly, right? We do not tell people WASD and mouse 1 to shoot. That's like, they should know that if they're buying a first-person shooter. But everything else, outside of that, you have to tell them. And then tell them again, like in Dusk, we have a mechanic, we have a crossbow that shoots through enemies and walls. We tell them that the first time you get the crossbow in the first episode. Then we tell you again in the third episode, just in case you forgot. And then we put a whole line of dudes in front of you so you can be like, oh, that's cool. And is a running tutorial good? You guys know what a running tutorial is? It's when the tutorial's like baked into the game and all that stuff. Is it good? Oh, yes. And I'm going to show you why it's good, because we're going to play Ultrakill. This is the interactive part of the talk. Never gets old. What? What's that? What are you doing? No Steam, bad Steam. No, do not bring up my friends list. Stop that. This game contains scenes. Oh, wait, no, I'm not. No, I'm offline. Nobody needs to know I'm here. Go away. Yes. Goodbye. All right, anyway. So when you start up Ultrakill, you get this, difficulty, blah, blah, blah. We're going to do the prelude. We're gonna enter the fire. Full intro, yes. All right, so this is how Ultra Kill starts. Yes. So the first things first, game wants to know if you've got your audio calibrated. Yes, we do, good. Video. Easy, so remember what I was saying about your defaults? There's a ton of things you can do with the visuals, but you want it to look like a PC game or a PSX game? So we give you that straight off the bat. There's a ton of other stuff you can do, but defaults. Give them what they want. Mechanics, difficulty, boogity 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 boom. I play games on normal. We have a ton of assists and accessibility options. I'll get to that. Never gets old. Welcome to Ultra Kill. F to punch. I'm better at the game. Control to slide. Dash. Get your health back by killing enemies. Ground slam. Congrats, we just taught you how to play Ultra Kill. That is all the basics you need to know. There are a ton more mechanics. And we put you right into the game. This isn't an optional tutorial, it's baked into the game. Never gets old. And that's the tutorial for Ultra Kill. Takes you right into the game and you are right there, never takes you out of it. We have taught you everything you need to know in the first, what was that, 45 seconds? And then the game keeps going. Would you quit the game at that point or would you keep going? The tutorial's there, we've taught you every single thing you need to know. And that is a running tutorial. I'm not saying every game needs a running tutorial, but when it's done well, boy, does it work. And now, back to the slides. However, as a producer, there's a thing I like, it's called the machete of truth, because sometimes developers build these super long tutorials or these super long intros and the players are not getting to the good shit. And it is your job as a producer or a director to take out that machete and cut off all the shit that the game doesn't need to get to where it needs to be. So originally, my guys didn't want me to work on Ultra Kill. Famously, I've talked about this a lot. Hakeda pitched it to me in New Blood and emailed me for 2 years before I finally agreed to work on his game with him because I didn't get it at the time either because I hadn't actually played it yet. I was very busy. We were doing Dusk and Medieval and stuff. And my guys played it. They're like, yeah, it's cool. It's like Devil May Cry and Quake. It's got a style meter, fucking whatever. And I played the first few levels, and I was like, yeah, it's a bunch of orange hallways and stuff. It's really cool. It's got fun mechanics. But then I got here. And I was like, what the hell is going on? I'm outside. It's got levels named after prog rock. There's stuff about Dante's Inferno going on. I was reading lore books. I'm like, wait, there's more to this game than I thought there was. The problem was my guys and the guys playing the demo didn't get here. They didn't get here yet because the prelude was too long. They played the first few levels, which are orange hallways and stuff, and they're like, yeah, it's cool, but what's so special about it? And I'm like, you've got to get to the special stuff. I took out the machete of truth, and I cut a bunch of stuff out, and by the time we put it in early access, the prelude, I had cut probably 30 minutes off of it. And as a result, players were getting to E1M1 a lot quicker and getting to the crazy good stuff. The time to fun, or time to fuck as I like to call it, because I swear a lot. We were trying to avoid this. There are so many games where it's like, yes, it's a funny meme. You got to get players to the good stuff, that time to fun. There are so many games that you see, whether you see it on Twitter or social media or X, whatever the fuck we call it now, where you're like, wow, that game looks really cool in GIFs and stuff. And you go and you play the demo and it's like, tutorial, a lot of menus. Okay, there's base building. That's not what I thought I was getting into. Like, I'll see a game about, like, riding a hoverboard and shooting in slow motion on Twitter, and I'll go to play. I'm like, when do I get to do that? I want to do the fun stuff. And in order to get, you have to get players to the good stuff. I'm not saying every game. Some of you make, slow RPGs and, dating sims and stuff. You should get to the good stuff in the dating sims quickly too. But, you got to get players to the fun stuff. And that means you got to take out the machete of truth. And it's hard. It's hard to tell your developers that, like, hey, you've over-designed your game. You've put too much shit in your game. Your tutorial's too long. But what's important is thinking like a player. Going back to the talk, think like a player. What do they want? They want to get into the game. They want to play it. They want to get to the meat and bones. And you do not have to dump all your exposition at the front. Those of you who make story-based games, if you've ever watched a good movie, it's not just exposition dump and then game, Kojima. But he can get away with that. You can't. It's okay to drip feed stuff, but this isn't a talk about RPGs. I'm making one eventually. But yeah, you want to avoid this, even though New Vegas is great. Come on, bro. Who can think like a player, however? Programmers think like programmers. Artists think like artists. Testers think like testers. That leaves you. You might be a producer, marketing, community, an investor. And you need to speak up. Like I said, nobody wanted to work on Ultra Kill on my team because they didn't get it. They were programmers. They were too in the weeds. They were artists. They were like, we've seen PlayStation 1 style games before. We do personal shooters. We've seen Quake. It's cool. Yeah, it's Quake and Devil May Cry. Whoop-de shit. It took me getting in there and playing with them and cutting bits out of the game and then representing it to my own team. It's my goddamn company to say, hey, Ultra Kill's a game that we should work on. And you need to speak up if that happens. A few months ago, famously, one guy from Modern Wolf tweeted that they missed out on Shadows of Doubt, which is a game that is now done very, very well in early access. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a voxel-based detective immersive sim. It's a very, very cool game. And it sold a ton of copies. It's done almost dredge numbers, but not dredge numbers. Because someone on the team didn't like that it was C to crouch instead of control to crouch. And nobody spoke up. And they missed Shadows of Doubt, and it sold 500,000 copies now. You got to speak up. But as a producer or with someone to say in the matter, your job's not to tell people what to do or how to do it. Nobody likes a helicopter producer. I don't know if you've ever worked at a AAA or a big studio where just somebody just stands behind you no, that's not what I asked for. Is the task done yet? Do you have any blockers? Oh, do I have to find that out for you? Fuck that. You ever worked in one of those places? It sucks. Your job is to help people do their jobs better. When in doubt, options. And we'll get to that. So what have we covered so far? First time user experience, get to the fun, and now options. Nobody ever got mad at a game with too many options. You ever got into an options menu and be like, oh, there's too many options in this fucking game. That sucks. And options absolve you of blame, but make sure people can find them. Every time, how many reviews have you seen or forum threads have you seen where I wish I could do this in the game? And you're like, actually, if you just look in the options menu, you can do that. Or it wasn't in the game, and they were right. Soul mode in a medieval. In a medieval, when you kill enough enemies, you collect enough souls, you're able to soul mode, which is a crazy overdrive, kill mode. Originally, it was automatic. So as long as once you collect enough souls, it activated automatically. And I was like, players are going to hate this because everything in the room is already going to be dead, and then they're going to get soul mode, and there's going to be nothing for them to kill. Turns out I was right, but it took a whole lot of Steam forum threads and reviews after we entered into early access to be like, I told you so, and guess what we did? We made it an option. But the old way, because people, for some reason, players will always want the original thing, even if you've added something that's objectively better, art-wise or design-wise, they'll be like, can we get the old one back? I really liked the old blood decals. They were gorier. Players are weird. But simple things like button remapping, FOV sliders. In 2023, there is no excuse not to have these options, Starfield. Some people don't like seasonal events, which is weird. I worked on a game once where the player base was super serious. It was a super serious community, and we put pumpkins in for the Halloween event. And I was like, yay, pumpkins, we can be in the Steam pumpkin sale now. And they were mad. They were like, get these fucking pumpkins off of our loading screen. And I was like, oh. Whoops. So in Ultra Kill, seasonal events are an option. You can have little Santa hats on during Christmas, or you can turn them off if that makes you really mad for some reason. Every option you give the player is one less reason to leak a negative review. That game was Stationeers, by the way. This is some of the Ultra Kill options menus. I am not saying you need to have this many options in your game. I'm just saying if you do, people are going to be happy. We're getting to another one. Saving. This is a big one. So what have we covered so far? First time user experience. What was after that? Get to the fun stuff. Options. And now saving. Saving is such a big one that it gets its own bloody slide. Let them. You are not Miyazaki. I don't know, is he here? It's like, Hidekata? No, oh wow, he's not here. He didn't come to my talk. What's up, bro? This is another lesson I learned on my first game, Rise of the Triad 2013, where we were working on Unreal Engine 3. And Unreal Engine 3 was not good at stuff, so we had to use streaming levels, and we thought checkpoints were good enough. They were not good enough. People were very angry, and they wanted quick saves. We thought the time between checkpoints would be enough. If you ever played that generation of games, like, the Gears of War generation, there would always be like a thing where like some rock wall would fall behind you, and then you'd go to the next thing. That's them doing streaming levels and checkpoints. That was just, in Bioshock Infinite, it'd be like the big trains would come together, and you could, in loader games, it'd be like, when you pass through like the little hallways. Yeah, it's very dumb. Anyway, this was an issue with Gloomwood. Gloomwood is a survival horror game, an immersive sim inspired by games like Resident Evil. Resident Evil has save rooms. We go, if we have save rooms and it's inspired by Resident Evil, that'll be good enough for us. Turns out we're not Capcom and we can't get away with that shit. We're an indie game, people say, fuck you, let us quick save. We ended up putting quick saves in the game because once again, we were wrong. Your design is not so goddamn sacred that you can't let players respect their time. People have lives, people have families, people have things to do, people's cats will jump on their keyboard. Let them save the game, it's whatever. You can design difficulties and achievements around like your intended design, but if someone's just playing the game, just let them save. Also, save systems, yeah, they're a pain in the ass. Save systems are the worst thing in the world to code, they're the worst to implement, they're the worst to QA. The most bugs will come from saving and loading. We know this. However, this is a talk about how to get better reviews. Saving. If you don't have it, reviews negative. If you do have it, positive. Anyway. So we were wrong about Gloomwood. I've now learned this lesson twice. Will I ever make a game without a normal save system again? Probably, but I like pain in my life. Don't waste the player's time. Don't create frustration. Your sacred design is not worth it. Losing progress sucks. We all know this. It's happened to all of us, even if we're game designers. If we play somebody else's game and we forgot, we got so used to like auto saves and checkpoints, and we didn't quick save. Next thing you know, we lost like 20, 30 minutes, and we're like, oh, Alt F4, fuck this game. We don't know. That could be your game. We want to, it's our fault. Unless you want negative reviews. You don't. That's why you're at this talk. Accessibility. All right. So what have we got so far? First time user experience. Options. Find the fun. What was the last one? Saving. I have short-term memory loss. And now accessibility, because a lot of you still aren't fucking doing this. What's your excuse? Dev time. All right. It's the wrong talk. This is not a talk about how to make faster games. Better games, better reviews. Accessibility is a big one. Miyazaki is not here. You did not make Elden Ring. You did not make Dark Souls. You do not get to get away without difficulty options and shit in your game. You will get negged for it. Ultra Kill is an insanely difficult game, but it doesn't have to be because we have accessibility options. Dusk is the most popular retro shooter of the bunch. It's also the most accessible one. Are you seeing a pattern here? You won't see Ultra Kill accessibility options videos on YouTube. You'll see source filmmaker stuff. You'll see high score stuff. You'll see crazy skill videos, animations. But it's not there for them. It's not there for the tryhards. It's there for everybody else, like me and you. Or maybe you're a tryhard. I don't know. Every accessibility option you have is one less negative review and one more potential new player. I'm going to say that again. Every accessibility option you have is one less negative review and one more potential new player. So make better games, get better reviews. Name of the talk. In the final week leading up to launch, I had to take my own advice on a medieval VR. You can apply these lessons to VR games as well, apparently. In that last week, we tweaked the weapon feel. We tweaked the boss battles. I tweaked the tutorial a lot because it's a VR game. I was in there. I hate working on VR. And performance, that's a big one, especially on Meta with the Quest because it's not as powerful, but it's wireless. And it paid off. On that launch, 9 out of 10 on Steam. I think it's 92% on Steam right now, and 4.8, 4.9 on the Quest store. And I was like, cool. I took my own advice. I followed my own lessons. I went back and did the things. We added more options. We worked on performance. We improved the tutorial, weapon feel, boss battles, all those things. Better reviews. It works. Common sense tips. Quick recap. So, where are we at? First time user experience. Saving. Options. Accessibility, get to the fun, and performance. I know performance didn't have its own slide, but if at this point in your career you haven't realized that games that don't run well get reviewed into hell, then every game that comes out when you're like, whoa, why are the reviews mixed or negative? And it's like runs like shit, doesn't run, servers don't work, blah, 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 blah. That is number one. find, and I know it's hard because you might not have the hardware if you're an indie dev to like test on everything, but like just go out and buy some shitty laptops or like a Mac if you want to, and like you got to test these things. You got to, or find, use your community. Do what you can. We'll get to early access in a bit if you don't have your own QA team, obviously, but like performance is so important. Be like, oh, it runs on my machine. Cool. You know what runs on your machine as well? Negative reviews, or just make ultra. Like it's worth the time to do performance stuff. Or just make games for Switch first, because then they'll run good on everything else. Yeah, Gnati knows what I'm talking about. Oof, working for Switch. Can't wait for that Switch too. Do all these things take development time? Yes, too fucking bad. If you want to make the best games, they'll be done when they're done. This is not a talk about how to make faster games. I cannot help you with that, seriously, not your guy. I left the 8th bullet point in there. I don't know what it was supposed to be. Yeah, all this stuff takes time. One of the things I like to tell people is when you get to the end of your game, development-wise, that's not when you're done. Especially with our games where I build them brick by brick, level by level, E1, M1 up to E3, M9. All the way back to the beginning and go through the whole thing again. Make sure it's cohesive. Make sure those options are there. Make sure because by the time you got to the end of your game, that's the best stuff because you've learned so much over the last 2 to 3 years that once you go back to the beginning of your game, you're like, oh my God, we need to fucking polish this up because like you are much better at the end of every cycle you've worked on than the beginning. That is guaranteed. The beginning of your game that you worked on is not the best. And it's also, but just funny because it's the most important. So go back and work on the beginning of your game, the first time user experience, the tutorial, all that stuff again, and then you'll end up like Dredge. The new Steam meta. A lot of you, are asking me about this all the time. Like, Dave, how do Steam good in 2023? I'm gonna tell you. Step 1, announce the game with a gameplay trailer and Steam page. Some of you are still announcing your fucking games on social media and then there's nowhere to go. There's no store page, there's no Discord, there's no anything. So cool, your trailer got 500,000 views and all those people that liked it are vanishing into the fucking ether because you didn't have anywhere to send them. Not good. So when you're ready to announce, people ask me a lot of, when I get pitched games a lot, they're like, when should we announce our game? Honestly, when it's playable. That's like, to me now, like if you announce a game and you've got a demo or something playable for like, at least for investors or publishers right now, that's because like, that's like when you're going to get the biggest hit. Like if Devolver or somebody sees your thing on Twitter and it's like, and I've seen this happen with specifically Devolver before where they'll see like a GIF and they'll be like, yo, that's sick. My friend Pedro, that's how that happened. The guy was like, hey, check out my game. And I was like, yo, that's sick. And he had a build ready for them to play and now the game sold like 5 million copies. So like, be like my friend Pedro or Dredge. Dredge had a build playable when I passed on it. I'm gonna mention that a lot. Demo's good. So at one point in the mid-2010s, someone was like, demo's bad. I don't know who that person was, but they're an idiot. Demos tend to be good. Demos are great for feedback. If you're not going to do early access, demo is a free and easy way to get feedback you need to incorporate into your game to make it a better game based on player feedback before you launch. Early access. We've been doing early access really, really well for the last 5-6 years. And that's because we build the games through early access with our community. We've got a big community because we've done a lot of early access. And it allows you to build better games with the features people want. And by the time you are out of early access, there should be no questions left. You should be like, all right, we finished the game. Is everybody who has played the game so far in early access happy? Yes? Cool. And then you release it, and the review should be really good. If you come out of early access and your reviews are not good, then you did not use early access the right way, and you clearly were not listening to your players during early access, and you were generally just doing it for the money, I guess. I am dying. Step 4, launch the fucking game. And then a bunch of inevitable hotfixing. Yay. Some people like to launch their game and then just walk away, just throw a fucking, in a firework. There's always gonna be shit to fix. Always. People who launch their game, then they go have a party, I'm like, so who's fixing the game? Post-launch content. You don't have to have post-launch content, but it is a fun and easy way to extend the life of your game. If there's something you were working on that didn't have to be in the game during development and you're like, there's a lot of times you'll be like, let's save this for post-launch. Whether it's something like an endless mode or a boss rush mode or ship painting in Dredge or like just fun stuff you can add as post-launch content, do that because people love that shit and make it free because if you ask them to pay for it, you're a dick. And then discount slowly. A lot of people, including the platform holders, Nintendo, Valve, Sony, will be like, put your game 50% off 3 months after launch. And that's because they want money. That is not what you should do. Because over the last 5-6 years, I have discounted really, really slowly, and the games are selling just as well now as they were 5 years ago because we discounted slowly. So unless you need the quick influx of cash, do not be tempted by putting the game 50, 75% off only a few months after launch because there is no coming back for that. People track that, stores track that. You cannot have your game 50% off and then the next sale be like 10% off. Nobody's going to buy it. Like the data is there, and it does not equate. You need your game sales will look like this always. You know, average day, sale, average day, sale, average day. Some fucking streamer, YouTuber, Markiplier plays the game. Back down here, you know, it'll always look like this. But if you discount deep too fast, it'll just be like this, because you'll get that big hit, and then the rest of your game's life cycle will be like boogity 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 boogity. Discount slowly, trust me. Step 6, profit. I hope so. Our secret weapon is QA. I have an internal, most people that are employed at New Blood are QA people because we test like crazy and we strive to make perfect games. We have set the bar so fucking high for ourselves that like it's what we do now. But I love putting out games and being like, yeah, they're pretty good. But early access can be yours. If you cannot have an internal QA team, that's what early access is for. Try to put out the best version of your game you can in early access, and then suddenly you've got hundreds or thousands of people testing your game, and listen to them. Be like, thank you. All these things that you have found, we are turning them into Trello cards, and we are working on them, we swear. And that's how you do early access the right way. And if you follow all these steps, you'll do good on Steam. So, you know, go look at the first slide. I've been doing this. It's, you know, trust me, bro. Demo's good. Someone said demos are bad. Demos are good. End of talk. Demo's good. Reviews. Now, a lot of you are afraid of reviews, and you should be. -1 suck. People are mean. Every time I go read user reviews, I get sad, and you will too. It sucks. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and everyone still is like, you said something mean about me in my game. Fuck it. You have to do it if you want to get better reviews. Lead the charge. Control the conversation. Communicate. Do not launch your game and then just not look at the user reviews. You got to get in there because a lot of these issues are things, if you don't get in there and start communicating with these people, your players will start communicating amongst yourself. They'll say, developer doesn't care, lazy devs not listening, devs not going to fix this stuff. But if you get in there and the positive ones are great, pump those up. Be like, thanks so much for the reviews. But the negative ones, a lot of times, it's just technical support. It's them thinking you're not going to fix something. It's them getting frustrated. And so many times, if you just get in there and communicate with them, they'll be like, sorry, I rushed the judgment. They'll flip their review, or they'll be like, oh, sorry, this was just something you could have fixed. Try to remind them that reviews are not for technical support. That's what forums are for. I'm sorry you had a technical issue. The amount of times I've replied, hey, man, we could probably sort you out. Jump in the Discord or leave a forum thread, and we'll fix you. And then you do, and then the review either gets deleted or they flip it to a positive because, wow, nice, helpful devs. Like, you can do that. And the first rush of reviews is so important. Making sure that they're positive off the jump is so, so important because that's what people see when your game comes out, the user review. It's the same with any product. What do you do when you go look at anything on Amazon, or what do they have down here? They don't have Amazon down here. Or on anything. Or a hotel or whatever, on Google, a restaurant, you look at the user reviews. How is the food? What are people saying? It's the same with games. User reviews make the world go round. And getting, those good ones off the bat, if you can, unless your game's just objectively shit, but there's a good chance it's not. Negative reviews are usually, they come from a few places, and I'll tell you all about them. Why do people leave negative reviews? Frustration, those key reasons, performance, missing options. Them being frustrated is very likely your fault because you haven't seen this talk yet. People are more likely to leave a negative review than a positive review. And I think y'all know this. When you go to a restaurant and you have it's a good meal, you had a good time, it's fine. You probably don't leave a review. If you go to a restaurant and they spat in your food, you had a really shitty time, you're definitely going to leave a negative review. So if you have a bad time, you're more likely to leave a review than just if your game was pretty good, which is why you got to remind people, hey, if you like their game, leave a review. There's a whole other slide on that after this one. Very rarely it's because the game is just bad. You know, when was the last time a game was just like flat out like shit, like Redfall? But like it wasn't very. I tried. But like most of the time, like games that are like in the mix to positive, it's like the negative reviews have nothing to do with the game itself. It's always performance or the servers or missing options. I couldn't save my game, something, or like developers were woke or some bullshit like that. Proper messaging and expectations matter as well. If you show like what your game is and it is realistic to the game, and their expectations are set up properly, and they go into the game and like, wow, this is exactly the game I thought it was. That's good, and that's a marketing and PR thing, but messaging is, people talk about marketing all the time, they don't talk about messaging enough. You have to show people what your game is and what they can expect, so they're not blindsided, when they finally get into the game. Make leaving reviews a thing people want to do. People want to leave the best or most upvoted reviews. Create a culture of positivity around reviewing. It's possible. Get in there and be like, hey, I say this all the time. I've responded to like fucking probably like 90,000 forum threads in my life, right? And I'm always in there like, hey, if you like what we're doing, if you like our games, don't forget to leave a review and spread the word. I say that all the time. Leave a review and spread the good word of New Blood, like I'm preaching or something. But like, you gotta do it. You gotta remind people like, hey, you like our game? We worked really fucking hard. Leave a fucking review. It's not, you don't have to, like, it's okay to ask people to review your game. Some people are so afraid to ask for reviews, especially game developers. Y'all are so afraid, especially over in New Zealand. We got this thing called tall poppy syndrome, where nobody wants to stick their head up and be like, maybe review my game that I worked on my whole fucking life. If you worked like for years and spent all your money with your friends working on a thing, but you're afraid to ask people to review the game, come on. Restaurants ask you to leave Yelp reviews or reviews all the time. Hotels, you ever check out of a hotel? How many times do they ask you to leave a fucking review on TripAdvisor? Like 15 emails, like, I'll totally do it. No, I won't. But you're too shy to ask players to review your game when your life's on the line, your whole livelihood? Bruh, it's okay to ask players to leave reviews. Don't be a shill, don't badger them, but if you see someone having a good time, it's okay to be like, hey, you like our game? Leave a review. And if you create that culture around people leaving reviews for your games, they'll get excited to review your next game because you have set a precedent. I never lose. I win or I learn. A famous quote by Nelson Mandela. I prefer, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents, by Bob Ross. And my first game was a happy accident, I'd say. It was a lot of work. It was the first thing I ever worked on. Rise of the Triad, a reboot of a game from 1995 that we've just remastered now, 10 years later. My life is a flat circle. It barely broke even. IGN gave it a 4. But there were so many lessons learned it could never be considered a loss. Stuff like saving, stuff like performance, all these things. It has a cult follow, and we now remastered the original. It's responsible for another subgenre, blah, 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 blah. And it's been 10 years since then, and I have tried with every game since then to follow my own advice, to think like a player. Do we remember? First-time user experience, options, accessibility, find the fun, just make dredge. What was the one? Yeah. And what does all this get you? Ultra kill! Yay! I'm not going to say if you follow all my advice, you will have an ultra kill success. Ultra kill has been a runaway success, far exceeding pretty much double any of our other games at this point, even though all our games have been pretty successful. However, I sometimes forget to take my own advice, but every time I do, things turn out better. Every time I go back and think of my own, try to think like a player, and it's a unique position I'm in because my guys trust me now. They're like, let's wait to see what Dave thinks of this next build, because I will always try to put myself in a brand new player's shoes. What are they thinking? Where will they get stuck? Where will they get frustrated? What would make them happy or unhappy? What can we, what's the balance between our super sacred game design and just letting them do whatever the fuck they want? And if you follow all these tips, like, things will be better. I am not saying all your games will sell 1 million copies and have 98% reviews, but they'll be higher, they'll sell better, and your players will like you more, and I sleep like a fucking baby at night. We love you and we hate money. That's what we like to say, and just to prove it, hi Dave. Thank you kindly for letting me cold call you. We've been hearing really positive things about New Blood. Your Thief with Guns campaign for Gloomhaven, that's not the name of the game, Nadia, immediately sold the game to us, and we came for us for a list of partners for our game that we'd like you to work on called Dredge. passed on that. Any questions? We will now do Q&A. Is this going to be like the NZ crowd? We all are too afraid to ask questions? Or did I just cover everything so perfectly that there is absolutely nothing left?
You
Right
are
here.
perfect, Dave. We all know that.
Who the, what the, where, who? Hi.
That was the voice of God. Okay. Obviously, you should do all of your tooling and figuring out if it's working in early access, closed beta, whatever. Gotcha. Totally cool. What if it launches, it's still janky, reviews are coming in bad and hot? What's your recommendation?
Get in there. Fix it. Don't, you gotta, communication. We've had that. So Gloomwood was not fun. We thought it was long enough in early access. People did not think so for the price point. We launched it at $19.99 with about 2 to 3 hours of content. Unlike our usual games where it's episodic and level based, their first, old retro FPS where it's like, you could have a whole episode or this amount of levels. Gloomwood's an open world game. And we thought we had enough content there. And what was there was very good. Everybody said that, but they were like, this isn't enough content. The demo had more content. What the fuck? And unlike our usual 95 plus, it was 92% rated at start, and that killed us. Dylan was like on fucking suicide watch. I'm like, we have set the standards way too high for ourselves. But then we had to get in there, and we were like, okay, we dove into the forums, we dove into everything. We were like, what do people want the most? And we were like, what can we do quickly to answer some of these things? Some of the things they wanted immediately were like different difficulty options. We're like, all right, we can get, what they really wanted was more content, but content was gonna take time. We couldn't just build a whole new district in a few weeks, but like, what could we do? So we got in there, one of the biggest things was saving. We were wrong about that. We got in there, we let them enable the console. We're like, all right, you want a quick save? You can quick save now. You just gotta get it. Tilde, you can do that now. We were like, cool. That got some of the people out of the way. Then there were people who wanted different difficulty options. So we added the super hard difficulty option, Blood Moon. We got that done in a few weeks. Boom. The tryhards, we got them out of the way. And then, they wanted more options for stuff that we didn't have. For the vision cone and stuff, we're like, cool, we can get that done. Got those people out of the way. And slowly but surely, we chipped away all the things that the people didn't like until the only thing left was, all right, more content. And we told them that was going to take time, but we communicated. And then we put a big content update out. People got happier. We've since put more big content update out. People are now happier. And people are in a pretty good spot now, but we're still kind of doing catching up to what I think people expected from the early access launch, and that's been a learning experience. But yeah, so when that happens, obviously it could have been a lot worse. We're crying about like 90, it's at like 94% now, which still makes us sad. It's not overwhelming. You have to get in there. You have to work on it, and people will tell you what they want. Think like a player. If you can't think like them, because a lot of those things that they came up with were things that I thought of leading up to the launch, and I wasn't loud enough about. I did not follow my own fucking advice. And in hindsight, if I did, sales would have been, it went it's the first New Blood game that's gone #1 at launch, and we're like complaining about it, but we're motivated by making players happy. We don't want angry players, we want happy players. So to answer your question, yeah, you got to get in there, you got to work on it. There's no substitute. Unless your game is, unless it's Redfall and you should just move on to the next thing. Man, they fucked that up. But yeah, there's no, you got to get in there, you got to do the work. But like I said, there are the little things that you can chip away at, to pick and choose, be like, all right, this is a thing we can do. This is a thing we can do quickly. Yeah, it sucks when that happens, but you got to get in there and handle it.
Yeah, I can't remember your exact phrasing. It was like something like slow discounting or something.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean to you? I mean, slow's probably a bit subjective.
Yeah, so at this point, with Dusk and Medieval, which are 5 years old now, they have just hit 60, 65, 70% off, and they'll never go below 75. Because here's another thing people don't tell you. Once your game is less than $5, you start to get customers that are not nice customers. You start to get people that just buy bargain bin shit and like leave negative reviews from countries you've never fucking heard of. And they're just like, you're getting like actually like a low quality customer at that point, and you're not getting enough return on your investment. So I say actually, somebody once told me, whatever you think of pricing your game, add $5. And that is a really good thing, because people might be complaining at the start, like, this game's too expensive, but it'll offset the platform cost, like that 30% that all the stores take. Jeff, do you mind? So my advice would be add $5 and start launch discounts. Big deal. You got to have a launch discount. It's just how we work these days. 10 to 15, 20% if you're ballsy, and then slowly every every big, obviously you want to time discounts with game updates. If you're in early access, or if you're adding post-launch content, or if you've got a collaboration with another game or a bundle, these are big things you can do, collab with like-minded games. Spoiler alert, we've added the Dusk soundtrack to Metal Hellsinger. That's happening on Halloween. The game will be on sale for that. Those kind of things. I'd say add like 5% every time as the years go on. So like by the time you're at 6 months, maybe you're 25, 30% off, a few years, 50% off. And then, you'll get to a point where every time your game's on sale, it's like 50% off. But that's like end of life cycle stuff. It depends how, if your game's like $70, $80 or whatever, you can do that like 75% off. But for us, that would mean the game's like $4.99 because we make $20, $30 games. But yeah, slowly it's whatever works for you. Because like I say, if you discount fast, you will get that quick hit of cash, but you can't come back from that. And that is your bar. It's like if you're 40% off, the next time your game has to be at least 40% off or nobody's going to care. You can't go back to 10%. They're going to be like, the game was just 40% off. I'm just going to wait for that again. It's just how the market works.
Cheers.
Yeah. Anyone else? We got one all the way in the back over here.
So you mentioned that there were a few times where you should have listened to your own advice or should have been louder.
Yeah.
For those people that are members of a team where they aren't the programmer and can see things that could be better, how would you go about being louder without treading on toes?
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? Especially, it depends how, once you get to bigger studios, it gets real political, right? I've worked at AA type establishments where it's 50, 60 people on a game, and it's like, somebody gonna mention that this whole system sucks? What you should not do is just go in Slack or Discord and be like, hey, I think this sucks. I think, at that point, if you have leads, you have to talk to your lead. You have to have good communication's important at any game studio, no matter how big or how small. If you're a 5-person team, you should all be, comfortable talking to each other. If you're at a bigger studio, you should be comfortable talking to your leads or the people under you, the people above you, and say like, hey, I don't think this is fun or this is great, or I think a way you can really get around pissing people off, because it sucks, especially if it's a system that somebody's been working on or art that someone's been working on. Be like, does anybody else think that character model sucks? Like, it's hard because somebody made that. You make them sad. I think one of the ways, if you bring players into it, you say, hey, I think players are not going to like this. I think this is going to frustrate our players. Don't make it personal. Don't say like, I don't like this. I think this sucks. Because what you're really saying is you think that the end user is going to agree with you, which is true. If you're confident that like something, say the tutorial's too long, and you're like, hey, you could even fucking lie to people and say, hey, I showed this to a bunch of my friends, and they said the tutorial's too long, and I agree with them. And they'll be like, what, you took the build home? And be like, no, I was lying. And they'll be like, what, you lied to me? And then you did it. Then you're in like a fucking sitcom at that point. But yeah, if you phrase it or frame it as like, I think players will. The problem is with someone like me. 10 years ago, nobody wanted to listen to me. A lot of the things that went wrong with the original Rise of the Triad reboot are things I brought up. I was like, hey, I don't think the multiplayer should work like this. I think we need to have more armor, less health, less rockets, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, you've never worked on a game before, shut up. And I was like, okay. 10 years later, everybody listens to me. It's tricky. But I think if you phrase it around like what I'm saying, think like a player. Or you could say, I went to a talk at GCAP, and this guy who shipped a lot of games said that I should think like a player, and I am thinking like a player, and I am telling you that players are not going to like this, then maybe you will not get yelled at. I don't know. But yeah, I think one of the biggest things, communication is like the most important thing. People ask me what you should look for when you're like hiring. I'm like, people you work well with. If you hire just straight off resume, like you've seen this, how many of these like rock star game studios have popped up over the last few years where it's like, we got this guy that worked on The Last of Us, and this guy that worked on Call of Duty, and this guy that worked at Blizzard, and we put them all together, and we took a photo, and there's no women in it, and and then like they all hate each other because they're all just like a bunch of rock stars with egos, and they don't work well together, and you can't just drop a bunch of people with really good resumes in a room and expect a video game to come out. The best games are made by best friends. people that work really well together. New Blood, we have never hired anybody. We have never fired anybody. We've been working together for 10 years. We're all just a bunch of friends making games. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I think that's the most important thing. If you're gonna join a studio, or if you're hiring people at a studio, bring them in and like see how they fit. Because if you're working with people, you can get I've worked at places where it's so fucking high school and it's so awkward and you're afraid to like bring up anything. You're just like, I'm just gonna do my work, and it's not my fault if the game comes out and it does bad. But it sucks because sometimes you want to be able to speak up. So I don't know. Work with your friends if you can. God bless. If you can't, start looking for studios where you can. We got a few. I thought that was you, Tiffany.
Hey, thanks very much for that. You say demos are really good.
Yes.
I agree. I love
Unless
a
your
good
demo is bad. Unless your demo is bad, people are like, woof.
Yeah. So say you have a good demo.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that you release it too early if you are still sort of relatively early in production, and sort of an early access type release is going to be like 6 months or a year after you've already completed this demo?
Well, we've done that. So like Fallen Aces had its demo 2 years ago, and we're only putting it into early it'll be almost like 2.5 years between demo and early access launch, but that's because we basically rebuilt the whole game since then. But in the meantime, we collected a shit ton of wish lists. Like, the demo's still up there because it's still a good demo. The Gloomwood demo was up there for almost 2 years before we hit early access. Are you bringing me lunch, young lady? So I would say it's ideal to have like your early access or your full launch not too far after the demo, but at the very least, your demo's up there, you're collecting players. Everybody that plays a demo, that's a chance to get a wish list, get a pre-order if you do pre-orders, bring them into your Discord or wherever you're collecting community members. Mailing lists are still a big fucking deal. So as long as you're collecting customers and getting information and getting potential wish lists, it's not the end of the world. Ideally, you don't want it to be that long, but I mean, what's ideal in game development? I wish we didn't have, I wish it didn't take us so long to get Gloomwood early access out or Fallen Aces early access out. But at the end of the day, people will not remember like that your demo to early access period was too long. They'll literally, after the game launches 1.0, 5 years after that, they're only gonna remember 1.0. Dusk's early access and pre-order period was a complete clusterfuck. We originally weren't gonna do early access because we were very against it, and then we switched from pre-orders to early access and had to gift like 7,000 people the soundtrack for free because we felt nobody remembers any of this shit. They just remember Dusk came out, Game of the Year 2018, blah, blah, blah. So ideally, yes. But we cannot paint with that broad of a brush. So is there like a strict answer like your demo should be 6 months before but you should have a plan. Don't you? It's building your demo is like usually like a vertical slice. And it's like this is what the game's gonna be like. Hope you like it. Take that feedback, apply that to the rest of development or early access. Yeah, do your best.
How you going? Turns out that I can't read room numbers, so I went into like the completely wrong talk for like the first half of your thing.
All right, so I'll start over. Anyway, so first thing, first time user experience. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the second half of your talk was wonderful. I was basically wondering if there was
Can I send you the slides?
Yeah, phenomenal. That's literally it, basically. Thanks, man.
Was that really what you were asking?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, we'll go back to the whole talk. Anyway, so, all right. Hi, my name's Dave Oshry. And I made these fucking games. They're pretty good. And then these, and then that, and then that, and then boom, bam, boom, boom. I'm going to leave that up because that's really cool. If anybody can find the next copy of Game Informer and send it to me so I can frame that, that'd be sweet. Also, like every time, my mom thinks I made Doom, which is hilarious. I'm like, I am not John Romero. He has way better hair. One more. Wow.
Hey Dave, I wanted to know what your experience has been like making shorter games on Steam. I think at this point Steam players consider anything under 15 hours short.
That's nuts. Did you see today the big gamers are mad because Spider-Man 2 can be beaten in 30 hours. How dare they?
Because I think there's still people who do like the dollar per hour
That's
like
fucked.
cost judgment.
That's fucked. If I see a game that's like 20, for me, like 20 hours is like the sweet. I'm 40. I'm gonna be 40, right? And like when I see a game is like when I see like a new Far Cry is gonna be like the biggest, most openest world ever, 500. I'm like, nope. I do not have time. I just can't be fucked. I do not want to do side quests and stuff. Our games tend to be like a sweet spot between like, 6 to 12 hours. Gloomwood's going to be longer, a lot of replayability. Quake was 4 hours long. Nobody remembers this. Doom was like 5 hours long. Nobody remembers these games, but they're moddables. They go forever. Our experience making shorter games, I mean, you could ask David about that, who's been making really short games like Iron Lung and Squirrel Stapler, which I didn't publish because I hate money. And now I don't get to meet Markiplier, and he does. He says he's a really nice guy. And I think it's a thing, as long as you price it right and you set those expectations. David, like when he did Iron Lung, he was literally like, Iron Lung is a 1 hour game about being trapped in a submarine under an ocean of blood, blah, 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 and this is what the experience is. And he was worried, it was $5, which is, it's like, here, it's a 1 hour game, costs $5. This is, the messaging was there. It was on point. It wasn't like all this stuff, but it wasn't like he didn't say that it's a 1 hour game. He was like, it's an experiment that I did. He said, this is a 1 hour game, costs $5. Then it's about exploring an ocean of blood in a submarine that you're trapped in. And everybody was like, okay, I know what to expect. I am going to play this game for about an hour and it's going to cost me $5. And I think if you manage expectations, it's less of an issue. I think when people when people get surprised by anything, that's when they get frustrated. Like, what the fuck? You think the game's over? What happened to the ending? Rage 1,
So like if you get like a review that's like too expensive for the playtime and it's negative review, how do you turn that around?
We don't get that a lot. We got that with Gloomwood Early Access, and I think they were right. I think charging $19.99, we didn't have enough content yet. We could, if it had been $14.99, it would have been fine. But that was just a hindsight thing. And the problem is Gloomwood was kind of like the sacrificial lamb, because for Fallen Aces, which has a different structure but is also an immersive sim, the first episode we're going to launch for $9.99. And then when we add episode 2, it'll be $19.99. Then episode 3, $29.99. So the final price will be $30, but that initial early access launch will be $10. So nobody's going to complain. They'll be like, wow, for $10, this is a lot of game. It's always a balancing act. I'm not going to say early access should be super cheap. There's people that do early access more expensive than the 1.0, which is the weirdest thing I've ever fucking seen. I don't understand that at all. You're supposed to reward your early adopters. I went to marketing school and stuff, and they taught you that straight off the bat. First people that come in the door, you should be like, hey, you want to try a thing really cheap because it's not finished yet? Cool. The car doesn't quite run yet, but it will soon. But you pay less. Come on. So yeah, it's a balancing act, price per. With our games, I think, if I could go back in time and make Dusk and Medieval $30, I would. But we hadn't earned the right yet. People didn't know who we were, and they didn't trust us. Now, we're making Gloomwood and Ultra Kill are going to be $30, $40 games. Fallen Ace is going to be a $30 game, and I think we're just getting to that point. Do I ever want to make $60, $70 games? Not really, but I think in the indie, with inflation, I think games should cost more. I'm a crazy person who's like, games cost the same now as they did in 1992 on Super Nintendo, which is crazy. Which is why all these games have to have games as a service and microtransactions, all this shit to get the games should cost $200, but they don't, which is crazy because we work on them for 3 years and then we're like, okay, $20. That's what you pay for lunch. It's nuts. And gamers are like, this is too expensive. I'm like, what? But if you say that on Twitter, people will cut your head off. What? Games should be free. It's a crazy world we live in, but it's always a balancing act. It's always a dance, and you just gotta read the room. You gotta be like, all right, look at your contemporaries. What are other games doing? If you are making an immersive indie sim that's 8 to 20 hours, and you're like, well, Gloomwood was a bit too expensive on launch, and people got mad at that. Let's price ours a few dollars less than that and see how we go. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah. Was that it? Were there any other? Do you have time for one more? Was there one more? Is it a good one?
Yeah, we're 3 minutes over.
Well, they went over on the last one, so Sure. Yeah, get some.
Okay, sure.
All right, better be a good one. It's the last one.
Oh, pressure's on. So you mentioned earlier the sort of bargain bin crowd that you get that don't leave the most valuable feedback.
Yes.
For context, I help run a course that in which we have like 20 to 30 students working on a game project in a studio emulating style. And this year we're trying to upload those projects to Steam at the end of the course.
Okay.
For free because they're a student project. We can't
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
charge
You
for
can't
it.
charge for it. You can't charge for
Yeah.
student stuff.
Exactly.
You should never charge for jerseys of college football athletes. They would never do that.
Well, it's revenue split between
Yeah,
kids
no.
and all that, yeah. Because we're going to be doing it for free, the main thing we're looking for is valuable feedback for the students. Because
Yeah.
they're all working in their associated disciplines. I want to see feedback for those kinds of things. Would you have any advice for cultivating valuable feedback in that context, considering we're going to get kind of the worst of that crowd?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I think it's doing a student thing is different than putting out like a first-person shooter and making it like $3 and, you know. So I think, you know, take the feedback from there and then what I like to do is funnel people. There's a lot of developers who have like their own forums, and then the Steam forums, and then their Discord, and then this, that, and the other thing. I always say, if you want to come find us, if you have technical issues, post on the forums. If you want to join our community, come to the Discord. You know, that's the only place we check. If you talk about our game anywhere else, we are not responsible for that. We do not manage our own subreddits. Can't be fucked. You know, stuff like that. Like, if you want to go talk there, that's fine. If you want to talk directly to us and help on the game, you have to join our place. So I think you should funnel them towards, if you want to if there's a school Discord or, you know, message boards or stuff like that, be like, hey, if you want to actually help, you know, you'll get feedback just on the forums and stuff, but if you want to get real actionable feedback by people who are invested in the game, be like, hey, do you want to be one of those people? Come here. And on the forums, pin that to the top. Be like, hey, you're a real person who actually wants to help our students make better games. Well, come in here and tell us all about it. And that's where you get the valuable people. And those people will follow you to your next thing. They may follow those students to their first shipped game that makes money. And that's I could do building a community is a whole nother talk. But that's, you know, one of the biggest things you can do. Like, if these platforms and these social media networks go away tomorrow, will you still be able to sell games? Will you still have people who are interested in your games? Or did you put all your eggs in the basket that is Twitter or Instagram or whatever the fuck they're calling Twitter now, or Steam or Xbox or Game Pass or the Epic Game Store, which was a terrible idea. Try to build something outside of all that. Build your own thing. You know, 5-6 years ago when I started doing that with New Blood, my guys were like, you know, I was like, listen to me, if we build this thing and people like our games, it all starts, you have to have good games. That's like, at the end of the day, the games are the most important. Doesn't matter how many times you rebrand, what your logo is. Like, if the games aren't good, nobody's going to come. You know, if you build it, they might not actually come. Field of Dreams. So try to build something outside of the major platforms, you know, which is weird because I'm saying, like, build a Discord, because, like, what if Discord goes away? But try to build something outside of just the mainstream and collect those people, find the best people, and hang on to those people, because that's how New Blood got started, and now we're all friends, and, you know, we ain't stopping anytime soon. Actually, you know, once Ultra Kill comes out, I'm probably just going to retire, so, yeah. And that's it. Thanks for coming to my talk.